Ride a black horse to Banbury Cross to meet a fine man who's made himself boss. Rings on his fingers, don't step on his toes, for he will bring torment to all who oppose. Chapter 11. As the soldiers rode off toward the stables, Elsbeth stood in the courtyard beneath a clear blue sky, looking around in awe at the enormous structure that literally surrounded her. Before today, the nearest she'd ever been to a castle was Marianne Schnechter's 7th birthday party, which was held at a miniature golf course. But this castle was the real deal, and Elsbeth loved everything about it. What she found most appealing were the wonderful smells, and she could not help but wander over to get a better look at the sausages hanging in the window of the butcher shop. She leaned toward them, closed her eyes, and breathed in their rich aroma. Her heart nearly stopped when she heard, "No loitering." Until then, she hadn't noticed the sign printed with those exact words. Loitering means like kind of hang around. Elsbeth found herself both startled and annoyed. All right, she said. No need to yell. I was just... Do you have any money? The sign demanded. No, said Elsbeth. Then you're loitering, said the sign. Now knock it off. Elsbeth shook her head in disgust and moved on to the bakery. Recently, there had been some trouble involving the Knave of Hearts stealing some tarts. As a result, a sign had been posted out front that read, "Shoplifters will be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law." When she was within a few feet of the shop, the sign barked out, "Watch it now! Shoplifters will be prosecuted to the full extent of the law." I can read, she snapped back. Good grief. That's not very good public relations, you know, threatening potential customers like that. No offense, ma'am, the sign replied. Just doing my job. You'll be out of a job when this place goes bankrupt due to lack of sales. Treating people like common criminals. How insulting. I'm sorry. I feel horrible now, said the sign, wilting slightly. I really do. You know what? Then, despite its complete absence of eyes, the sign appeared to look first left and then right before turning back to Elsbeth and whispering, "Why don't you go ahead and help yourself to one of the tarts? On the house." Seriously? Considered her a free sample. How's that for customer service? That's very nice of you, said Elsbeth, as she eyed the tarts, trying to hone in on the most delicious of the lot. I'll make sure and tell all my friends to shop here. As Elsbeth carefully lifted the chosen tart, she realized her hand was trembling. It had been a very long time she'd last eaten. Greedily, she shoved the tart toward her mouth and took a bite. Before the flavor could even make its way from her taste buds to her brain, the sign shouted out, "Thief! She's stolen a tart! Burglary! Robbery! Thievery! Arrest her!" Elsbeth spat out the half-chewed bite and threw the remainder of the tart to the ground. "What?" she screeched. "You told me to take it." "If I told you to jump off a bridge, would you do that?" the sign shouted back. "You should be ashamed of yourself, of all the sneaky, dirty tricks." "I'm sorry," said the sign with a sigh. "It's just that I have a quota to meet. 5 shoplifters a week, or they'll fire me. You understand. Tell you what, let me make it up to you. See that butcher shop over there? The owner is a personal friend of mine. I'm sure he wouldn't mind if you helped yourself to a sausage or two." "You think I'm falling for that again?" "That's quite enough," echoed a voice from across the plaza. The source of the voice, a tall, thin man with longish blonde hair and a brownish-yellow mustache, hurried over. "I'm quite sorry about that, Miss Puhle," he said as he reached Elsbeth and took a moment to catch his breath. "Rest assured this incident shall not go unreported. Pardon me, my name is Georgie, His Majesty's personal valet." "Georgie, as in Georgie Porgy?" Elsbeth replied. "Georgie Porgy puddin' and pie," Georgie replied as if reciting a corporate slogan. "Speaking of which, when do we eat?" said Elsbeth, as she felt hungrier than ever before after having gotten a quick taste of that tart. "Right," said Georgie. "The feast. You must be very excited to meet His Majesty, King Cruel, ruler of all the land of the seas and the moon, Duke of Banbury Cross, Baron of Gotham, Royal Knight Companion—" Yeah, Elsbeth interrupted. "Duke of Pickled Peppers and Peach Pie Plum, blah, blah, blah. I just want to know when I can have some food." "I see," said Georgie, who seemed generally disappointed in not being allowed to finish reciting the king's full and official title. "It shouldn't be long. Why don't we get you inside and you can change for the party?" "I didn't bring a change of clothes," said Elsbeth. She looked down at her aquamarine t-shirt and faded jeans, dirty from her encounter with the Torqueno, and for the first time she worried that she might be underdressed for the purpose of meeting with royalty. "I didn't know I'd be coming here." Not to worry, said Georgie. In anticipation of your arrival, the king's personal tailor has put together an ensemble I think you'll find most elegant. He's quite in fashion these days. Anyone who's anyone is wearing Bobby Shafto. You mean Bobby Shafto's gone to see silver buckles at his knee? That guy? Asked Elsbeth. He designed this little number, said Georgie. He raised his arms and performed a full pirouette. What do you think? Is it too much with the ascot and the epaulets? Elsbeth, who had no idea what an ascot or an epaulette was, just looked at Georgie and said, Looks fine to me. Oh, good, said Georgie. The last thing I would ever want to do is show up his lordship. All right, then. This way, please. Georgie turned on his heel and walked quickly across the courtyard, and Elsbeth followed. He really is a wonderful man, you know, Georgie said. There was a gleam in his eyes. He spoke. A truly great leader who has done so much for this people. Georgie stopped and pulled open a heavy wooden door. We'll take a shortcut through the kitchen, he said. They stepped from the breezy courtyard to the busy kitchen, where workers hustled about, stirring this and dicing that. There were bubbling pots and sizzling fry pans. On a long counter running through the center of the room rested the most enormous pie Elsbeth had ever seen, its diameter perhaps equal to that of a tractor tire. Wow, was all she could manage at first glance. I'm more of a cake person, but that looks pretty darn good. I should hope so, said Georgie. It's my most important duty to oversee the making of all pudding and pies. Tonight we'll be having the king's personal favorites, plum pudding and every berry pie. Every berry pie? You mean it has... Every berry, said Georgie, leaning into the pie and taking in a long whiff. Every single one? As the name would imply. Raspberries? Raspberries. Strawberries? Strawberries. Blackberries, blueberries, gooseberries, cranberries, and elderberries? But of course. Lingonberries, salmonberries, and marionberries? Child, said Georgie, it's my job to personally see to it that everything is just right. So believe me when I say this pie contains every berry there is. Huckleberries, thimbleberries, mulberries, you name it, it is there. Loganberries? Georgie's face went instantly white. His eyes widened and his jaw dropped. What? Loganberries. You did say it had every berry, said Elsbeth. You mean to say you forgot the Loganberries? Georgie snatched Elsbeth by the elbow. Shh, he hissed as he hurried her away. You mustn't speak a word of this to anyone. Relax, said Elsbeth. It's just a dumb old pie. Who cares if you forgot to put... Georgie responded by clamping his hand over Elsbeth's mouth while hustling her toward the exit at the far end of the room. What are you trying to do here? Get my head chopped off? Elsbeth tore Georgie's sweaty and foul-tasting palm from her mouth. Take your hands off of me, she demanded. My apologies, Miss Puhle, said Georgie. Please forgive me. It's just that the king is very particular about these things. And if he were to find out, well, there's no telling what he might do. Georgie quickly opened the exit door that took them into a windowless corridor, the walls lit with torches and alive with quivering shadows. You just got done telling me what a great guy he is, said Elsbeth as Georgie shut the door behind them. So what makes you think he's going to chop your head off just because you forgot the... Shh, please, Georgie implored the girl, even though there appeared to be no one but those two in the hallway. Yes, the king is a merry old soul indeed, and a great and wise man, and that is precisely why he deserves the very best. Now, with any luck, he won't notice the missing you-know-what, and all will be fine. We'll just have to hope for the best. Halfway down the hallway, Georgie opened another wooden door, revealing a small circular room in which nothing stood but a mannequin bodice at the center, outfitted in the most beautiful gown that Elsbeth had ever seen. It was made of silk and a dusty rose and trimmed in bone-colored lace, with a large bow that tied at the back. Sleeveless and softly pleated from the waist, it seemed to hover weightlessly above the ground. Is that for me? She gasped, while walking slowly toward the dress, as if any sudden movement might cause it to run off like a frightened deer. Elsbeth had never before been much for fancy clothes, but there was something about this particular dress. It was more than clothing. It was a work of art. It is indeed especially for you, said Georgie. I shall summon the dressers, and please, not a word of that previous business, if you don't mind. Sure, said Elsbeth, her mind lost in the breathtaking vision of the gown. A pair of slippers made of the same pink silk, like the ones a ballerina might wear, lay on the floor nearby. By the time the royal dressers, two pretty and very pale young women, arrived at her room, Elsbeth was already wearing the slippers and the dress. though she wouldn't need their help in doing up the many hooks that fastened the back. The young women were abundantly pleasant as they took to their task, and in keeping with their training, spoke only when spoken to. This made for a very quiet room, as Elsbeth was still quite speechless at the sight and feel of Bobby Shafto's latest creation. "How do I look?" she said finally, for there were no mirrors in the room. "You look absolutely lovely," said the paler of the two. "It's just that—" The woman stopped short, and she and her cohort exchanged a look of uncertainty. "What?" said Elsbeth. "With permission," said the second one tentatively, "we'd like to do something with your hair." Bobby Shafto's gone to sea, silver buckles at his knee, the latest fashion accessory from Bonnie Bobby Shafto. Now Bobby's working for the crown, paid in sovereigns and in pounds, to make an execution gown from Bonnie Bobby Shafto.